more women to participate. And then in 2013, we updated the study. And in 2013, of course, there had been more people, more women interacting online. And out of the recommendations that came, there was so much work that needed to be done. Training law enforcement, creating awareness amongst women on how to conduct themselves online, working with policy makers, letting parliaments, discuss this. And because we are not a women's organization, we decided this was not for us, and we had to look for partners, people who would be willing to take the work. And it's at that point that, and again, it was very interesting because the traditional women organizations, the Coalition on Violence Against Women, were not willing to take up the work because, online issues are not their daily bread. And so we got the International Association of Women in Radio and Television to agree to take up the project. And therefore, we gladly handed it over, but we still give them support. For example, we host a map, an Ushahidi map for them on how many cases are coming of which areas where women are being attacked. We map that for them, but they contribute the cases. We only host and administer the map.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, let me just quickly interject. A quick announcement. We do have Wi-Fi available right now. The network is the network is Smile IFF 2016. The password is IFF all 2016, capital letters. Let me repeat that again. The network is Smile IFF 2016, and the password is capital letters all. IFF all 2016. So please sign up. Don't forget, use the hashtag IFF 2016. Let's get the word out there. It's back to the ladies.
Thank you. Ebele.
Hi, my name is Ebele, and I head public policy for Africa for Facebook. And I'm just going to briefly talk about some of the things that Facebook is doing. I'll put them into two categories. One is access, and one is online violence against women. So one of the things, so the GSMA and a number of organizations have done research looking at differential access, so looking at the gender divide or the digital divide when it comes to gender. And one thing that becomes very clear is, and this is true not just of the internet or technology, but whenever a resource is scarce, women tend to have less access to that resource. And so when you have very high costs related to access to technology, access to handsets, access to just internet access, we were finding that women were often in a position where they were getting less. Women were much more likely to be sharing a handset. Women were much more less likely to have smartphones, so they're more likely to have feature phones as opposed to smartphones. And I'm talking about this across countries in Africa. And so we see access as an issue related to gender. So we see access as absolutely an issue related to women's empowerment. And again, I think I would echo what Ashna says. I don't think technology is magic. I don't think that social media is certainly not magic. It doesn't solve every problem. But to the extent that it's something that can be linked to economic empowerment, so one of the things that we're seeing is that technology or access to technology can be associated with entrepreneurship. And so to the extent to which women have differential access to that is the extent to which they remain behind men. So that's one. And so Facebook's whole connectivity agenda, which includes free bases, which includes our infrastructure investments, is really looking at the ways in which access can be targeted towards people or the groups of people who don't traditionally have access to the internet or to technology. So that's one. And the second is around online violence against women. This is related to what Grace is saying. And this is the fact that in public spaces, in online spaces, women are attacked not for their ideas, but for gender. And so the question is what a platform like Facebook can do about that, and that's what we've been trying to answer. So we kicked off our online violence against women, really a study session, really to understand what the regional and country contexts were or are. So 2 weeks ago, I think we started in Nairobi, where we brought together a convening of 35 women from across the continent to have a conversation about it. And we see it really as a free expression issue, because the extent to which women don't feel safe in online spaces, to that extent we as a society, as multiple societies, are losing the advantage of those voices, and women are feeling like they can't speak. And again, to Grace's point, it's one thing to be disagreed with because of your ideas. It's another thing entirely to be silenced on the basis of gender. So one of the things we're doing is, again, trying to figure out what are the contours of it, what are the local, what are there ways that we as a platform can partner with local organizations to create a different conversation? And then the one thing I would say, and I'll talk about this later, is I think whenever we talk about online violence against women, I say this all the time, is we focus on what women can do. And I think there is plenty of room for a conversation around what men can do, around creating different norms, around how we engage online. And I'll talk to that later. But for now, I'll pass on.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Roslyn and I come from Cameroon. I've been working in development for the past 10 years. I work with women and children, and I've been working on various projects on education, environment, to try to improve the lives of women, especially those from rural communities of Cameroon. As to women's rights online, I would like to say that I'm very much concerned because I'm seeing that women, especially those from villages, rural communities, do not have access to internet at all. And I would like to, maybe today we can find ways on improving on that. As for those who are in the rural area, in the city, like in Cameroon, for example, many of them are joining the online space now, even though Cameroon is considered to be the least connected country in the world for now. But many of them are beginning to get what can be the positive impact of the online space in their economic activities, development, education, and training. So I work with a non-governmental organization called the African Youth Alliance Group. And all this, since the past 12 months, we have been working on a project on helping the young girls or women in the town of Bamenda to have access to the online space and benefit more of the opportunities that are on the online space. Thank you.
Last but not the least, yeah. So my name is Nana, and I'm a technology lawyer. So I'm also the registrar of a school. Let me break down different aspects of my job and the things I do that have to do with women. First of all, as the registrar of a school, I'm also in charge of recruitment before I move it to the HR to handle it. One of the policies we started, which I noticed some other companies have started, is we hire a lot of women. That is one thing we made a point of duty to do. If a woman can do the job, then we won't hire anybody. So that was one of the things. Now, as a technology lawyer, I'm the African representative of iTech Law Association. It's not a gender-based association. But sometime in 2014, we had a meeting in Paris, and we figured a lot of things are happening online, and what should the conversation be? Do women have the same rights they have offline as they have online? How do we watch the conversation? How do we figure out what is going on? So we decided to start curating activities, monitoring some women online. And after 6 months of doing that, we said, let's change the conversation. Let's take a different look at how to change perspective, how women are perceived. So we chose the gaming section, which is very strange, particularly for Africa. I don't know. If you game, how many people game? I think, how many people play games, computer games? How many people? How many people have played Grand Theft Auto games? Very good. In Grand Theft Auto games, you notice something. You have the chance to pick a prostitute from the road who all the time is a woman. And then you have the time, you pay her, and then you also have the chance to kill her. You stab, shoot, and then take back the money you've paid her to work for it. So one thing we noticed that most games that men play were based on female violence, violence against women. And there's a perception, the penetration of games into homes, it's faster than internet actually, because usually they are in CDs, they are passed down, you can buy them off the shelves. So a group of women got together and started working. We're going to create women who would do a lot of things in games and take the roles that were assigned to men already. Why? The purpose is this: to change the perception, to begin to see women in a different light. Because even in Africa, growing up, while playing games with my brother, he always went, oh, okay, I will kill that woman, I will do this. You know, why? Because I'm stronger than women. That's the perception. So we chose games because we wanted to change how women were perceived from online out to the offline world. But it's been creating a lot of problems because you find out that female gamers, people who are doing this, people who are running this movement, most of us have to have anonymous online presence. Why? Because the violence is a lot. This is the first time I'm saying this out loud. Nobody knows I do this. Because the violence, the cyber stalking, the threats are too much. People practically send you death threats because they think you want to change the world of gaming. They think you want to change the perception, how men are being perceived. They think you want to do a lot of things. So now the thing is, relating it to our thing now is, I believe women have the same rights of freedom of association, expression, speech, and every other right that pertains offline, online. And every day we work towards changing that. And what we're hoping is that as time progresses, we won't have to do this anonymously. We can actually come out with our names, our faces, and be able to speak up without fear of any threat or harm whatsoever.
Okay. I was going to ask that you give a round of applause. So we're going to turn this off now. And we're all going to use our mics because I want us to be as quick as possible. Yeah, so can you all turn on our mics? I'm going to read a few statistics, which I have here, following on very nicely from what all the women have said. And the first of them is 2/3 of the world's 870 million illiterate people are women. So 2/3. So 870 million illiterate people across the world, 2/3 are women. The highest number, or the highest numbers of these women are in Africa. Over 200 million women on the continent, so in Africa, do not have access to the internet. They have never used it. They have maybe heard of it, but over 200 million women on the continent do not have access to the internet. And the final statistic is the National Population Commission's 2013 Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey said 45% of women have been victims of sexual or physical abuse. Now, 45% of women who've been victims of sexual or physical abuse have never sought help or told anyone. 12% have told someone, but they didn't seek any help. Another survey commissioned and run by PIN in Lagos State found that a percentage of women went to a particular hospital for malaria, right? Now, of that same group of women, when they went online, only about 13 or 12% had looked up anything about malaria. So you're taking your children almost on a weekly basis to the hospital to get them treated for malaria, but you've never looked online for any information about malaria. These same women, however, there's a much higher percentage of them who have looked online for fashion, for social networking, for religious-related activities. But the thing that concerns them, or that should concern them primarily, they're not looking online for. So my next question to everyone on the panel is, the web can be seen as a gateway or window to health information or health awareness, economic empowerment, gender empowerment, redress for violence or sexual abuse, political awareness and participation. As a matter of fact, I know that Mark Zuckerberg said that for every 10 people connected online, there is at least one person lifted out of poverty. So how do you, in the line of your work, open up these spaces to women? So open up these spaces for access for women. That's my question. Who wants to go first?
So I'm happy to talk about what I think all companies like ours have a responsibility to focus on access, not just as a company imperative, but as something that helps to make the world better. So I think when those things are, two things are aligned, I think then you have a virtuous circle. So in terms of access, I mean, there's Facebook has internet.org, which is an umbrella of connectivity projects. So we have one connectivity project that's around infrastructure investment, and this is where we identify local innovative providers of either access or tools that make access less expensive, and we invest in them. This is a program we're just starting this year, and we're doing it across the continent. We also have a program called Express Wi-Fi, and this is where we pay for satellite backhaul, because that's often one of the most expensive inputs for local providers for local ISPs. And then we partner to them so that they can provide Express Wi-Fi to people. And for the Express Wi-Fi program, we're also looking at how are those Express Wi-Fi partners placed. So, for example, I mean, remember back in the days when internet was first starting, and it was all cyber cafes. So it wasn't Wi-Fi; it was all cyber cafes. And I don't know if you will remember the environment of cyber cafes. So essentially, a cyber cafe was not a place you would necessarily want to go to as a woman. So that's one of the things we're thinking about as we are partnering with local partners around Express Wi-Fi. How can we create spaces that are welcoming for women? And so this is what we're thinking about. Are there spaces that are women only? But how can we create spaces that don't become men-only spaces? There's also Free Basics. So Free Basics, while controversial, is really about giving people a bridge to the internet. So it's about partnering with operators so that they are able to offer internet for free to people who are new to coming into the online space. And for Free Basics, people get a suite of basic internet, essentially to give people, because a lot of people who aren't on the internet, they don't necessarily understand why it'd be relevant to them or why it'd be something that would be helpful. So what Free Basics gives them is access to social networks, but then also access to information about maternal health, access to information about malaria, access to information about keeping themselves safe from sexually transmitted diseases, access to information about parenting, jobs. Again, just to enable people to understand this is why the internet can be helpful to you, because one of the major issues related to internet access is, yes, there's access to handsets, yes, there's affordability, but there's also people who may be able to afford it but have no idea why it would be relevant or useful to their lives.
Okay.
So those are just a couple of the things that we're doing.
I think the main issue here is like women being informed of the opportunities that are online. In Cameroon now, the new phenomenon is that they use a lot WhatsApp, Viber on the mobile phone because it's what is most closer to them. Not everybody can afford to have a computer or whatsoever. So many young women now, they use WhatsApp and Viber for economic opportunities. Yes. They advertise their products, if they are selling hair products or whatsoever. They use those platforms to express themselves. So basically, what we do is that we organize seminars. We try to let young girls know that these are avenues for them, and these are platforms where they can express themselves in this area. Also to look for jobs, opportunities about sexual and reproductive health and rights, and all the like. So,
Okay. Anything to say? Do we have any questions from the floor? Anyone wants to ask a question to anyone on the panel? Anyone wants to make a comment? Anything? Yes, please. Your mic. Okay.
I think related to what you have said about their study, there's a study that was conducted by the World Wide Web, and it's a multi-country study that focused on Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, Cameroon, then Indonesia, Philippines, and Colombia. And out of that, one of the issues that you have raised about women socially interacting. I think women are social animals, and the study went to confirm that. And I want to read just something what it said. Majority of the ones who participated in the survey said they had access to internet, and but they reported high level of social usage in the last 6 months. In fact, and I'm not saying this, Bele, this should make you happy, but out of that, they said 92% of those access Facebook. 25% WhatsApp. 75% on WhatsApp, 28% on Twitter, and 15% on YouTube. And of course, you can expect YouTube because of the issue of data,
yeah.
and expense
Yeah.
of that streaming. But again, out of that 92, 52% said they use Facebook on a daily basis, and it's mainly to stay connected with friends and family. And what also emerged is that women are not appropriating digital opportunities, like you said, because out of that they said only 4% had actually looked for information on development, even in their country. So they are not looking for information on reproductive health, which really is a key concern for women. They're not looking for information on how they can empower themselves economically. And in fact, they dismissed the internet because it had not increased their levels of income in any way. So I think there are concerns that we have to be concerned. How do we make it more appropriate? And I want to say that we have a project that I've been involved with, and I think this is a project in Africa. It's in Nigeria and in Kenya, where rural women have been selected as a pilot to be trained on how to use education content on the internet, and Intel is providing the platforms. So, and they're using the mobile phones. I know one of the persons actually I'd hoped she would be here, but I don't know what happened. So, they're learning. And true enough, those who are learning realize, there are so many things I can do actually when I go online. There's so much information I can find. So I think there's also the issue of awareness, because Bella did mention about GSMA report. One of the findings is that women are not, they are not ready to just sit and start exploring the phone.
So
What can
much
it
to
do for them?
Yeah.
Because one of the issues is time constraint, and then the issue of cost. So, but they have said, if I can sit here with a Belle, and she just tells me, this is how you go into the menu, this is the drop-down menu, this is how you access this, then they are very fast. But they simply don't have time. So I think we have an issue of awareness raising and actually letting them know what digital opportunities exist.
Okay, thank you very much, Gracie.
Okay, so I wanted to quickly say something. Let me start with a little story. I remember the day I told my mom that Shoma is a social media strategist, and the look on her face, she didn't understand what that meant. So my brother just interjected from behind. She studied Facebook,
Which
you
is
know? and my mom felt really sorry for her. So to compensate, I said, oh, she worked for the president some time ago. I was like, oh, okay, and all that. So I think the whole idea is, one, gender stereotype. That's one of the reasons that women have, there are less women on the internet, because awareness. And back to gender stereotype again. Why women search for things like dresses, makeup, and all that? It's what they are expected to look for. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. They are not expected to be looking for the policy framework of this. People have put women in a box, so much so that even the women are beginning to believe they are in that box. So I would come back home, take my iPad, search for all the fashion styles and stuff, then probably turn to my husband and say, so what did channels say today? You understand? I have my iPad with me, and I'm not asking channels, what are you saying today? So I have that discussion with him and go back to probably playing, Candy Crush on my iPad and all that. So it's the stereotype thing, and also the bullying thing online. The number of women who are online, who are going offline, which it's a problem we must address. Women who are already online are going offline because they're either being bullied for their opinions, or they are either being bullied for the way they talk, dress, and then also the marriage thing. Some people tell you, oh, now that you're married, you have to behave in a certain way. You don't have to do something. I was actually personally bullied off a particular handle I used to use. So it's a thing that happens even to enlightened women. So you can imagine what will happen. Let's say maybe my mom's friend who doesn't know the first time they're coming online, and she probably types in something that could be grammatically wrong for the first time, and then she finds a horde of people on her saying she's not going to go near the internet anymore. She would probably leave it and say, hey, Google that music for me, download, and you see, she just picks a few things she can do with the internet. And maybe you find women who try to use the internet for business, and there's a slight error. Men are being given a wider gap for mistakes. They are allowed a lot of errors, but one mistake a woman makes is amplified so much so that you begin to wonder if there's some other thing attached to it aside from the fact of her gender and all that. So I think we have to start looking for how to encourage women to stay online. There was, when they were doing the Cybercrime Act of 2015, while I remember PI Nigeria we did some policy work and advocacy work on it, there was one particular section I had really wished that they would include gender in it, because it would have created a lot of protection for women, even though it's not a very fine act, but it would have done a lot of things for us.
Okay, thank you very much. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that obviously your question was what we're doing to try and
Yes.
ensure women are economically empowered or participating in governance. One of our strategies in our online rights work is digital safety and security capacity building. So the awareness raising and the provision of access is being done by a lot of other organizations that are either traditionally activist women organizations or enabling women's access to ICTs. But what we're doing is making sure that activists, gender activists, or human rights defenders that are working with women's groups, whether they're sexual minorities or they're women journalists, are able to actually know what data protection is or what privacy means when you're using Facebook or when you're using Twitter. I don't want to awareness, but skilling them to enable them stay online, like she's mentioned, that there are a lot of them that get bullied off just probably because they're not aware of how to block unwarranted messages or people that are otherwise harassing them online. So there's more need for a lot of capacity building in digital safety for women groups and women's rights organizations.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have Okay, so we have like 15 minutes to the end of this panel, and I'd like us to throw up some solutions. So we've figured out a number of things. Right, okay. Apparently we have a bit more time. So I'd like us to throw up a number of solutions to some of the things we've raised. So we've raised some points like access, right? But then access is the knowledge of what to do with this access. So women don't have a lot of children to take care of, you have your business, you have this, you have cultural and societal obligations. And so if you want to go online, first you must know that this thing will be beneficial to you one way or the other. There's also the issue of cost, which hinders access. But then in combating that, I want us to throw up some solutions about how do we push it to women that the internet is not just something you can use socially, but it can affect your life as far as your economy is concerned. It is said that when a woman makes £1 or $1 or £1, most of the time she puts that money back into her family, as opposed to what men do. Men, what are you doing with your money? But how do we push to women that the internet is more than social, it's more than fashion, it's more than lifestyle, but there's the economy, there's the economic empowerment, there's health, there's gender empowerment, there's speaking up against violence. I know that one of us in this room, I think it was 2011, she was saying something online and someone told her, go back to your country. And it was an interesting day because a number of us, stood for her and not only shut down that voice, we almost paralyzed it online. So how do we let women know that you can find this amount of strength or we can find this amount of spaces? You said something great about your organization not focusing on women online, so you pushed it away. How do we get people like you to take it on? Because you're already a really strong voice, a really strong and credible voice. How do we get you to take it on and not, in quote, shovel it to other organizations?
I think one of the things that when I said we pushed that project to a women's rights organizations, it's because we realized we didn't have that capacity to just deal with women because, we are, because of our identity as a multi-stakeholder group, then we also thought sometimes you need to define what you can, what you can finish on your plate and also allow others to be themselves and to practice their expertise. In terms of this, behind the screens, and they can, they can say what it is. So we want to see how is it that we have to start creating awareness on this. And I think, for us, we picked that up. And whenever we just made it like personal commitment. Whenever we see somebody circulate bad images, then you tell them, please bring this down. It's not serving any purpose. But again, for women politicians,
Political leadership or leadership in general is that one of the things that the internet has done or that social media has done is to be able to tell different stories about political leadership across Africa. So I was, 2 weeks ago, I was in Paris. There was Le Monde did a thing on African women. And one of the things is whenever you just, even when you think African women, when you have a Western audience, it's the same story. It's like, how can we help them? But this was a completely different conversation. I think one of the things, to your point about women from different societies being able to talk to each other, is you had Lamek Bowie, who is, whenever she's talking, I like to hear her speak because what she talks about is she speaks directly to the West and she says, it's not the same sad story. We are our own heroes. We can rescue ourselves. And so I think that's one of the things that's been amazing to me about having cultural conversations across countries, conversations across regions, because we can change the story and change the image of what being an African woman is, what power looks like. And that to me has been incredibly important and something that, a reason why it's incredibly powerful and critical to save this space as a place where women can continue to share those stories.
My final question has to do with something that I'm sure a lot of Nigerians in the room have heard of in the last 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks even. There's been like a recent trend of it's just started or it's been happening and people have just found out that they can raise their voices and cry out against it. It's this issue of taking a little girl from one region of the country to another region of the country, marrying her off to someone, and then refusing that little girl access to her parents till these parents go to journalists who now start to broadcast this news, and then people hear it online, and there's a loud call, and then we rescue one girl, send her back to her parents, and then the next day we hear, oh, there's another girl who was taken from this region to another region, and it just seems like it's singular acts as against an entire body of work that needs to be done around why are these girls, why does someone think it's okay to take a 14 or a 15-year-old in the first place from where they were against their will to a totally different part of the country and marry them off. And so my final question to everyone on this panel is, how do you see your organization as an advocate against violence against women, against things like kidnapping and sexual assault, and being a safe space for women to communicate these issues? And if your organization is not currently doing it, this is me asking your organization, so what are you guys going to do about it? So who wants to go first? Facebook, perhaps?
I'm happy to go first. Of course I would say this, but I actually think social media and Facebook provides a platform to raise awareness.
Yes.
And to raise awareness around a couple of things. One, around changing social norms. Sometimes shining a light on social norms helps people have the conversations that helps change those norms. So I think that's one thing. And then the other thing is around just getting information. Bring our girls back, that's not what you're talking about. But the conversations related to that, they're not conversations that Facebook started.
Yeah.
But Facebook provides a platform so that people can engage and get more people paying attention. So again, I would say that the beauty of Facebook, Twitter, all of these platforms is that it empowers people to tell their own stories and to connect and also to change social norms.
So to the organizations that can actually start those conversations, CIPESA, Grace.
I think I said in the very beginning that technology is not a solution to some of the challenges that women face. There are a lot of social, cultural, political, economic, they're various. There's so many demographics within women, and for us at least, being a research organization and doing a lot of ICT-related practice work, raising awareness around some of the women's struggles and what the technological solutions are is very important to us, including things like digital safety and security skills building that I mentioned earlier on. But again, evidence. So document the cases of violence against women, provide what should I say? The evidence provides a base for policy advocacy, obviously, but also as a means of understanding. So law enforcement and understanding technology-related violence against women. What do you do with the evidence of revenge pornography? How do you investigate such a crime? So raising awareness and understanding around those issues is something that we at TIPESA feel is very important and work.
Where does the government's right stop? And can I question them? Also, for the young people, if we want them, of course, a lot of them have access to the internet and the social media, then how are we educating them on what their rights are on the internet? Because if they know their rights to an extent, they can reduce incidences of things like revenge pornography and things like that affecting them. Because even the adults actually do not know a lot of their rights, and I think that that's something that's important for organizations that are interested in letting people know more about internet freedom. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll just take the last comment from Demba. We'll take the last
Please, it
comment
has
from
to be
Demba.
very quick. This is the last comment.
And then,
I have a suggestion. I think one of the missing links is that over the past couple of years, there's been discussion on ICTs and human rights, and that's really positive. But beyond general human rights, we need to go into group specialities where we look at women's rights, where we look at rights of minorities, people with disabilities. That's very, very important. And I think that's one thing that could help bring up women issues up on the agenda. But my question probably is, how do we do that? Thank you.
okay.
All right, Choma, the
How-
panel has 5 minutes because
Okay,
we need to start
so-
wrapping up.
His question was how do online spaces enable even minority groups, people who are disabled, and things like that to be able to. So do we have any answers? I think you put your hand up to have an answer. You had an answer. Okay.
Let me take the
Very quickly.
the first question and the social media pressure on teenagers. Yes, the truth is that schools that I know of organize instances, classes where they teach young people how to use social media, safe use of social media. And also, on the other hand, there's a lot of onus on parents because most times, except where the schools are boarding schools, most times the children spend probably 7:30 to 2:10 or 3 o'clock in the school. The rest of the hours, they're at home. So parents have to learn how to restrict their internet use. Parents have to learn how to restrict their phones. The school where I work for, we don't allow students to have phones during school hours. So their internet access is limited to their school laptops, which are programmed to connect to only certain websites because they only use it for assignments, classwork, and research. And every time you monitor your, we'll have some organizations do a training for parents to be able to monitor their child's web history because most parents don't know how to check that. So I think the onus lies more on the parents than on the handlers of the children.
Just really quick, and I know this is going to make me sound disagreeable, but one of the things that I often object to is if there's a conversation about women, it's a conversation about women. It's not a conversation about children. And I say that for a number of reasons. One, I think if we're talking, there's a whole conversation around child online safety, which is a very important conversation to have, but it's not limited to women. And I say this as a mother of 4 children. It's not only women who have the responsibility to take care of children. It's a collective global responsibility. And if we're talking about women's rights online, I think those are 2 different topics. Online violence against women or women's rights online are completely different topics from talking about how children can keep themselves safe online.
Having said that, I do think that there's a responsibility for companies like Facebook, and that's why we have partnerships across the continent, across the world, really, with organizations that focus on children. So we have materials called Think Before You Share. We have specific settings on Facebook that are specifically for people between the ages of 13 and 18. So those facilities exist, but I would say that I would caution against conflating women and children, because I think those are two different categories.
Okay, unfortunately, we can't get in any more questions. I feel like Lami is going to come and take this mic away if we don't stand up and leave this place. So I want to thank everyone who's been on this panel. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. If you have any more questions, please feel free to meet them afterwards. So thank you very much to Hashna, to Gracie, to Ebele, to Rosalind, and to Nana. Thank you very much.
Applause for the panel as they make their way down. But if there are still issues that we need to discuss surrounding the topic, please don't forget that open mic will also be an opportunity for us to debate some of these issues. Later on, one of the things I want to hear from the audience is their thoughts on the recent actions and the lawsuits or the legal maneuverings between the United States government and Apple. And it'd even be interesting if Ebele will still be around, the whole privacy thing. The US government is asking for access to the phone. The iPhone of one of those was involved in the San Bernardino shootings, but Apple is saying it's a privacy matter. And it's an issue of rights online as well as national security. So it's one of those issues that we'll be looking at. So Open Mic will have an opportunity for discussions on a various number of issues. All right, after lunch, we will be having the launch of the African Declaration of Internet Rights and Freedoms. Lunch is going to be happening by the poolside, so we'll be going actually behind the screen on that side there, making our way to the poolside. They'll be putting that down as we make our way out. Please also don't forget that we have Wi-Fi, but we're changing how the Wi-Fi is working. So because there are 3 rows here, we're asking that row 1 to my right go with Smile IFF, just Smile IFF, yes. So please log into the network Smile IFF on my right, password applies. The row in the middle, Smile IFF2, please use Smile IFF2. And then the farthest row, please use Smile IFF3. That way, the internet access and the Wi-Fi will get around to everybody. Please also don't forget we're still streaming live, www.pinnigeria.org/IFF, and we are using the hashtag IFF2016. I have 2 individuals aside the other 2 from this morning who have signed up for Open Mic. We'll be having a presentation from Co-Creation Hub, and of course, Kathleen will still be talking about issues surrounding internet and rights in Cameroon. I do believe that's all the housekeeping we need to have. So lunch is for us. It's available for us right now at the poolside. 2 o'clock, we are starting back. You have an hour if you need to hit the room, hit anywhere you need to go. Please let everybody get back inside here by 1:55 so we can kick off. Thank you so much for your attention so far. We'll see you after lunch. From 2016, brought to you by Paradigm Initiative Nigeria. Please, again, let's put our hands together for the team behind PIN Nigeria for putting this all together.
On this panel as women across Africa, working in different sectors across Africa, to kind of talk about the things we're doing and how the things we're doing affect or create more access for women to get online and do great things online. Very quickly, I'm going to allow every member of this very distinguished panel to talk about the things they're doing and how those things intersect with our theme for today, which is, women online. And so I'm going to start with Ashna, who I met last night. Hello. Okay, please tell us what you do and how that intersects with our theme.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ashna Kalemera. I'm from Uganda, and I work with CIPESA, the collaboration on international ICT policy for East and Southern Africa. We're traditionally a research organization looking at ICTs and their impact on livelihoods and governance. One of our themes is internet freedom, along with a lot of others. We're not a gender organization. I put that disclaimer out there just in case I say anything that makes antagonize someone. But basically, as we look at access to ICTs, we are very interested in how many women or what the gender disproportionalities are in terms of access and usage. And I think in line with our thematic area of internet freedom, it's clear that the challenges that women face offline moving very swiftly and aggressively into the online space. There is no disaggregated data available, at least from East Africa, on what the usage statistics are, so that we understand what the extent of the gender divide is. I think it's only Rwanda that provides statistics on employment in the sector, women's employment in the sector, but that's not enough. And we all know that ICT is great. It has a lot of potential in terms of mobilizing and transforming struggles of women, whether it's anti-rape, counseling, violence,